Will the Arizona Coyotes play in Arizona in the future, or are they going to move to another state? If you want to find out what happened in Arizona to the Coyotes and the Tempe, Arizona arena deal, stay tuned in this episode. Welcome back to EDI Sports Cards. In this video, we're going to look at the Tempe, Arizona Sports and Entertainment District debacle. The Tempe, Arizona voters voted down and told Alex Mariuello, the owner of the Arizona Coyotes, no deal. And so what we're going to look at is we're going to look at sports, politics, and business and how they come together and why this deal did not go through and what that might mean for other sports deals and sports arenas around the country, given what the political landscape is, as well as what is the advantage to sports owners and what's the advantage to residents. So I know that most sports fans don't have a lot of experience in politics, and that's why I figured, you know what, I should probably take a deep dive into this. So for those of you that know, I've had 4 different careers in my life. I've started as a journalist, then I went to TV entertainment, then landed in politics. And when I say landed in politics, that's basically what happens. And then I ended up in education. So I have experience in sports, in business, and also in politics. And so what I want to do first is kind of look at this deal from a business perspective. From the Arizona Coyotes perspective, what were they looking for? And so from their perspective, as we look at this deal, this was a huge win for the Arizona Coyotes. Like if the voters in Tempe had said yes, Arizona Coyotes would have made out huge, not just for the hockey team, but basically the ownership group, so Alex Mariuello and his ownership group would have made a fortune on this deal. So for them, this was a huge win. And so one of the things that we're going to do when we get to the politics section is we're going to look at why did Arizona voters in Tempe say no? Because we can see one side of the business deal, but then we got to look at the other side of politics. All right, so that's what we're going to do. So let's lay out what this plan actually was, because there was a misstep on the Arizona Coyotes part that they just either didn't know or they didn't care. And that's why Arizona Tempe voters said no, ultimately. And that's what you want to know, because the Oakland A's, or the A's, I don't know if they're Oakland anymore, are running into the same problem because it's not a win for voters. And that's what you need to understand, is if you have to go to voters, you better make them happy. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to just steamroll them with a 100% good business deal. They have to live there. They have to pay taxes. They have to deal with whatever you're building. So let's look at the deal. So the first thing that you need to understand is, where was this? So if you're not familiar with Arizona, this was in Tempe, Arizona. And the location that they were looking at was called a 46-acre abandoned toxic landfill. Now, obviously, for those of you that don't know anything about real estate, you don't know anything about politics, let me just put it this way. This is what was called or would be considered under the EPA as a brown field. And a brown field means that the land is contaminated. You can't build there. You have to first clean it up and remediate the site. Now, Tempe, Arizona has already done that estimation, and they said that it would cost $75 million to remediate the site to make it actually developable. You can't build on it right now. So the Arizona Coyotes, for step 1, said, look, to Tempe, Arizona, we're going to pay $75 million to clean the site for you. And so the city council and the mayor of Tempe was like, okay, let's sit at the table. You're going to pay to clean up the site. What do you want to do with it? And that's where this situation got huge. So the Arizona Coyotes, whose owner is Alex Maruello. Now, if you don't know who Alex Maruello is, he has made his fortune in casinos and real estate development. Now, perfect fit for what he's trying to do in Tempe. He wanted to build out the Tempe area. The 46 acres that is completely abandoned right now, he wanted to build it out. But what he needed was the Tempe City Council to approve a zoning change to create what's called a sports and entertainment district. Now, for the voters of Tempe, it doesn't matter. Like redistricting or rezoning a spot doesn't really affect the day-to-day life of a resident. So they don't care. Like, okay, it's an abandoned landfill. You're going to build it into a sports and entertainment district. Sounds good. Okay. So still, you're on the win side of Arizona. You're on the win side of the Coyotes. No one has a problem at this point. So now, okay, what's the next step? So then Arizona, the Coyotes say, well, we want to build a $2.1 billion complex. Basically, we're going to have an arena, we're going to have hotels, and we're going to have commercial real estate, and we're going to have home residential. Like we're going to have places for people to live within this district. So it's a mixed use, which is typical of development deals today because people don't want to have to drive everywhere. Some people want to live where entertainment already is. So you want to live like close to a mall or close to supermarkets or close to other things. So this would give that opportunity for people that want to do that. You know, Alex Maruello and the Coyotes would set up a private deal, so a separate company, basically a development company that would take over this project. And so that's what they were saying to Tempe, saying, look, we're going to do this as a private deal and we're going to develop this property. It's going to be $2.1 billion and that's what we're going to do. Again, when we get to the politics, you'll see where this comes into play. Now, anybody that comes to a city and they say we're going to propose to do a development, this is where, again, the planning board and the zoning board come in, is that you have to have what's called city planning and urban design. And so they gave the architects the plans, they gave it to the city, they looked at the planning board, and they said, well, you know what, this is an abandoned site. We have to build roads, sewers, electric, we need a grid, we need, like, how are people going to live here if they can't turn on lights in their home and they can't flush their toilet? Like, that's a problem. So the city of Tempe said, all right, you're going to put together a $2.1 billion development project. Fine. We're going to put in $246 million in infrastructure. Basically laying out the roadmap, like, okay, so, you know, this is what it will look like. These are the roads. I don't know if they'd come up with names of roads yet, but that'll be later on. So here's the roads, here's the sewer, here are the water lines, here's the power lines, here's like all your communications. You know, I'm sure that, Verizon got involved and were like, okay, well, this is how communication will be. Like, this is your fiber optic network. Like, I'm sure that everybody put their hands in and said, this is how we can do this. And that price tag came to $246 million. All right, so we're all good, right? So Coyotes pay $75 million to remediate. Tempe's going to pay $246 million to do infrastructure. And at this point, to be honest, if that was it, I think Tempe voters would have said yes overwhelmingly. Like, I think everyone would have been great because it's a toxic landfill. We get rid of the landfill, we build something nice in our community, and it is one on the commercial side, it's called ratables, so that's a new tax revenue for the Tempe City Council. That's great. And on the second side, because there's going to be residential, like condos, that's going to be more property tax values and, taxes for Tempe residents. So, okay, great, $2.1 billion project, plus Tempe gets taxes. This is a win-win for everyone. Now here's the kicker. You ready? Okay. Alex Maruello and his development group looked at this deal and was like, it's $2.1 billion This is a huge risk. One, because the housing market is starting to slow down. Two, because mortgage rates are starting to go up. Three, we may be entering into a huge recession. And so putting up $2.1 billion is a huge risk. That's just on the development side. On the sports side, Arizona Coyotes get about 2,000 people per game. They play at Mullet Arena, which is on the campus of Arizona State University. I've been there. From a college arena standpoint, this is the best college arena I have ever seen in my entire life. And I played hockey in college, and I also broadcast hockey. So I'm just telling you, it's one of the best hockey arenas ever. I was impressed. But going to see an NHL game at a hockey arena, it got old after the first period. It was really small, and it's really quiet. Like, you can hear people on the other side of the ice. It was weird. Like, it didn't feel like going to a professional hockey game. And I've been going to professional hockey games my whole life. Like, I've been to many, many arenas. Like, I've been to the Boston Garden. I've been to the Forum in Montreal. I've been, to down in Carolina. I've been to the Spectrum in Philadelphia. Obviously, I've been to the Garden. I went to Brendan Byrne Arena. I've been to a Newark Arena. Like, I've been to the Rock. Like, I've been to a lot of arenas. This had none of that feeling. Like, literally, it felt like you're watching pro players in a high school. Like, it was weird. So anyway, that's the problem right now, is there's no fan base for the Coyotes. Now, they haven't really done much in terms of building the fan base. Like, they've really done a poor job. Now, that's not on Maruello, because he just bought the team in 2019. So can't really fault him, because he bought it in 2019. You then had the shortened season and the bubble because of the pandemic. This last year was the first full season that he had where there was fans and that he could do something. So you can't put that, like that the Coyotes have failed in Arizona, on him. He's a new owner. The problem is that he doesn't seem to be betting on the Coyotes. He asked the Tempe City Council in this deal for an extra $500 million tax abatement over 30 years. Now, you might be going, okay, what does that mean? All right, so here's where we're going to stop the business side and move to the politics side. And we're going to do the sports side last, okay? So let's go to politics. So in politics, you have to deal with voters, okay? And voters have their own needs and agenda. Every single person, every single resident has their own feelings, their own opinion, and their own, like, they come to the polls and say, I like this deal or I don't like this deal. So what happened in Tempe, Arizona was that all the voters, or the majority of the voters, because this lost by about 56%, 57%, so that's a significant number. So the reason that it lost was because Tempe residents were like, we're going to end up paying for this. Like, we're giving a billionaire money to basically develop something so that he can make all the money back, and he's not giving anything back to us. And that's true. That's what this deal would have done. Alex Maruello and his separate private company that would develop this deal, this has nothing to do with the Coyotes, would have made hundreds of millions of dollars and paid zero taxes back to Tempe. So they would not actually get the money back that they paid for the infrastructure. Remember, Arizona Tempe, they were going to put in $246 million in infrastructure. None of that money was going to come back from this deal. And that's a problem. That's what the Coyote management and ownership should have realized was, maybe we're asking for too much. Now, I came from an area, in New York, New Jersey, which was booming. We're talking like housing like crazy, developments all over the place. And a standard deal on the East Coast for a huge development is that you get a 10-year tax abatement. That means a 10-year property tax abatement for everybody that moves in. So that includes the developer, which this whole project would have taken approximately 2 to 3 years, actually probably 3 to 4 years to fully build out, because the arena itself would take about 2 years, and then the rest of it would take another 1.5 years to build out. So you're looking at 3 to 4 years, and if you give a 10-year tax abatement, that means the people that move in don't have to pay property taxes for the rest of that 10-year time frame. So they'll move in and they won't have property taxes for 5 years. That's a nice deal for people who want to go get a nice place. They can't afford everything around it, but they get a nice place and they have a 5-year time frame to kind of save up money to pay for the property taxes. Now, property taxes in Arizona are way lower than anywhere else, but they're still not nothing. So just be aware that you still have to pay taxes. The problem is that not only were the Coyotes and Mariuelo asking for $500 million, that's guaranteed, but they wanted it over 30 years. And that's a huge problem, because that means that basically they're going to build this arena, they're going to build this whole development, and Tempe receives nothing for 30 years. That's crazy. Literally crazy. You just can't do that to a city. Like you would cripple the city. So you'd add all of the whatever, like noise, entertainment, traffic, problems. Like you're gonna have sewer problems, you're gonna have electric problems, you're gonna have like all of these things. All these kids gotta go to school. Like where's that going? And nothing coming back from taxes. Nothing. Because they said a 30-year abatement. And that, in the end, was just the straw that broke the camel's back. You can't do that to residents. You can get a 10-year abatement. That's reasonable. Maybe even 15 years. I've seen 20 years if you really pay people off. Thankfully, they didn't do that here. And thankfully, in Arizona, this is a free state. So you have to go to the voters. In some states, you don't even get to vote. Some states, it's a backroom deal. The owners pay off everybody, and they build a stadium whether you like it or not. That doesn't happen here in Arizona. So thankfully, the voters came out and said, I don't think so, dude. You can't just get a free $500 million paycheck off a $2.1 billion deal, and we get nothing back. So if the Coyotes were saying, well, you know what? We're going to build the arena, but the Tempe City Council will own it, and we'll pay you a lease fee for it. Well, that's a different story. Like, okay, yeah, we'll give you a 30-year abatement, but at least we're going to get rent on the building that you're building for us. Again, there was a lot of negotiation that never happened. So this deal was really dead on arrival for anybody that understands politics. Clearly, the Coyotes don't understand politics, and all of the media that's covering this on YouTube and on even in Arizona local like radio and TV, they don't get it either. So the point is that the Tempe residents were being screwed over. $500 million over 30 years. It's just untenable. It's not worth it. All right, let's get to the sports part of this. So what happens now? To be honest, I don't know what happens, because I think that Alex Mariuelo and the president of the Arizona Coyotes, Xavier Gutierrez, I think they're out of touch with reality. I think they're just looking at this from a business perspective, and they're not looking at it from a community perspective, which is what a sports franchise is. It's part of a community. And one of the things that's a problem that not only the Arizona Coyotes are facing, but the A's are facing now, moving or trying to move to Las Vegas, because assembly members in Las Vegas just asked the group that's trying to move the A's, they said, you don't do community building in Oakland. Oakland residents hate the A's. So why would we want you when they don't want you? And they don't have an answer other than, well, we have to do a better job. We have to build ourselves into the community. And that's the problem with the Arizona Coyotes right now, is they don't ingratiate themselves into the Arizona community. They don't do anything here. Nothing. Like, I went to a game at Mullet Arena. I get no communications from the Coyotes. I get communications from the app, the third-party app that I bought tickets from, but I get nothing from the Coyotes themselves. So I went to a game and they don't talk to me. Now, I would think that's probably a stupid business move, but only if you care about the sport, which I don't think Maruello and Gutierrez care about hockey. I don't think they care. I think they look at this as a business deal. The franchise is worth X. We want to increase the value of the franchise, but they don't seem to care about the sport underneath it. And so that's why fans don't come, because what are you watching? Basically, you go to the Arizona Coyote game to watch the opponent who's playing them, because the Coyotes have no identity. They have no team. They have no community. There's nothing around the Coyotes. So overall, personally, there is some talks, backroom talks about moving to Mesa probably, maybe. I'm telling you, I don't think any of these deals are ever going to work. I think the Coyotes have to move, and I think that the NHL would be dumb to move them to anywhere that doesn't already have an arena. I think putting themselves into another situation that has no arena, that you have to wait for this building to be built, is a dumb idea. But the NHL is notorious for dumb ideas. So we'll have to see what happens. But if you wanted to understand what happened in May in Tempe with the Coyotes and why they have no arena deal, this is the reason why. Thank you for joining. I'll see you in the next video.